south. We are going to Villa, which, funnily enough, we have, as the analyst said, seen Knights play, but not Wildcard, not for quite some time. The last time Wildcard played this map, it was actually against the Knights back in the OS finals for 2020, and Wildcard won 7-4. But that was a different Wildcard and a different time.
Yeah, very different. So it's going to be interesting to see how this progresses. I mean, the Knights weren't that convincing on it against Order in that APAC South match because that was an 8-7 overtime victory for them. So there are definitely kinks in the armor. And with that, Wildcard, of course, probably prepped for it as well. They are generally known as a good prep team. So you never know how that might eventuate for them.
I really hope here for Wildcard, for their sake, that they have had a chance to really thoroughly study the Knights guys. But as we know, Silex is currently subbing in for the roster, and he was previously, the coach manager as well. So a lot of that prep work is going to fall on to the people who are actually playing in this game, plus Flux, who is their analyst slash extra assistant coach thing. So it's going to be really challenging, I think, for Wildcard to even have enough resources out of the game to make sure that they are adequately prepared.
I think it's a pretty fair statement there, Dev. Now, I'm just having a look at these bands for the first time, and Monty is a pretty interesting band. I don't think either of these teams really play a massive amount of Monty. I have definitely seen both teams play it on occasions, but really more of a pocket pick. So that one baffles me. The rest are totally understandable, though. Mira and Thatcher are pretty common comfort bands, and the Valkyrie these days seems to be the other emerging comfort band, right? Just getting rid of that extra intel. Also, so you don't have to rely on taking an IQ. It does free up a bit of flexibility in that attack lineup.
Yeah, the Monty is the big question mark for me. With the Valk, that's a really common ban for Wildcard. It's been their top ban across the last 9 months or so. They just ban it all the time. They don't want to deal with that. They like getting rid of it. They don't like having that intel available for the defense. And they don't like having to counter it, like you said. Funnily enough, they do like running the IQ, though. Vinny is a bit of a comfort pick for him. So you'd think that maybe Wildcard could just leave it in and counter it with Vinny, but I guess he uses that scanner for other means.
Yeah, that's right. I think I've also heard him say while he is a pretty heavy IQ player, he does pretty much play it for the LMG. But at the end of the day, he's actually quite a proficient IQ player. Does use the ability well. And look, speaking of operators, Imarin on this Warden. Starting to see a little bit more Warden play here and there. And I really like this. I'm thinking maybe he's going to play top of main stairs, Dev, or play maybe around top red. Just trying to use those blasters to counter the utility dump that you would usually see to get control of that area of the map.
One of the big things about the Warden is that when the kind of sight and optics overhaul was redone to Rainbow, we had the 1.5 times sight added to tons of defenders, and Warden was one of them. And that MPX with the 1.5 times sight is actually such a strong weapon in the right hands. And Imorin, after his performance so far this season, I think it's inarguable that, yeah, those are the right hands.
Drone's ready.
So we'll see whether it does work out for him, but right now the Knights, they are doing the classic north across clear master bedroom, and there is actually no contention on that side of the map, at least from Wildcard. There's a player around red though. Hayward's going to try and peek this with the Gemini. This player is pretty isolated. Can get some support from Aviator, but it's going to be an early engagement, looks like. Dino goes hunting, and he's pre-fired into oblivion by Geo, and Wildcard stepping up at the start here.
Wow, and the refrag again! Wildcard certainly played that to perfection. I really like the idea there for Knights with the smoke grenades. Try and cover that line of sight so they could just isolate that red stairs player and push for him, but no, did not work whatsoever. Wildcard always kept the pressure on. Great shot through the smoke pre-firing from Geo, got that first kill, and then just the pile-on from the rest of Wildcard. Now it's just on Josh and Hayward.
A bomb has been located.
Well, some good trades coming out, though, at least to have salvaged this position, but it's going to be tough. This side is not easy to just squeeze into. If you don't have much control, it's there are some pretty comfort places to play. Hayward's just going deep, though, down Classical Hallway. He does tag. Silex misses those shots, though, Dev. And still with a minute to go, the Knights are just looking to speed this up, it looks like.
I appreciate their gusto. Good info on site as well, as we can see from that red ping. Josh keen to push in, but Silex is pushing back these attackers with his final gas canister and holding a pretty nice angle here to top red. Hayward may well contend with that in just a moment. Silex might find a nade coming his way, but it's the shot that eventually cleans him up. 2v2 now, 2v1, surely not for Knights. And that is a beautiful spray from Geo to close it out. Absolutely pristine with the 1.5 times scope.
Oh, very, very clean there from Geo to finish that off. A close round though, you know, very back and forth. Wildcard did step it up and really get a good start to the round. But the Knights did a great job trading, and then I honestly felt like after that double kill from Josh that in that 2v1 position, they were ready. They still had time as well. They could have repositioned, maybe pinched on that vault position. But not to be. Wildcard secured their first round, and that's going to help a lot, you know, with their confidence on the right foot.
Certainly good for Wildcard. Now, do we feel here that perhaps it's a defensive-sided situation here on this map? Just with, you know, from the perspective of Wildcard, they're starting on the defense. Does that give them some kind of advantage here?
Look, I mean, it probably does a little bit. We do tend to see Villa be more leaning in towards defense halves, giving the advantage, like a 4-2, but you know, that being said, the Knights order game that we were talking about with APAC South, that had 2 3-3 halves. That was a very even game. They were just basically trading rounds that entire match. So, you know, we've only seen one round so far. I wouldn't be too surprised if it's a similar affair here. I don't think there's anything in the bands that will swing this map in either direction. So, I guess it just depends how the Knights go with adapting and how they answer back from that start with Wildcard.
Yeah, good point about that Knights game. We definitely have that immediate point of reference for the Knights on how they like to play Villa. We can always go back and kind of look at that game, as Wildcard will have done in the last week. But it doesn't really give you much when you see that 3-3 split on the half, right? When we're trying to make an evaluation here. But I think that's why, you know, it's just early days here. Undeniable this is a good start for Wildcard, but Knights have proved to be a strong team when it comes to adapting. Now, they had a pretty terrifying performance just the other day against Seventh Heaven, where they were up 6-0 in the first half and were actually reverse swept 6 rounds in a row, but fortunately managed to close it out in overtime. Thanks to our, as our hearts were very thankful for.
Oh, yeah, look, that match was very scary, and it just felt like every round that they were dropping in that second half, it was I don't know, in a way, it was funny, but I'm sure it wasn't funny for the Knights. It definitely looked like in the interview, Dino had been pulling his hair from the stress of that match, but yeah, hopefully they don't get a repeat of that one. Dino looking to get aggressive on these vertical positions, plus Wildcard wanting to maintain that map control, given that it is kitchen dining. It's incredibly helpful to be able to maintain that as long as possible, because that is what the attackers will use to abuse those on site. And Juicy abuses Wildcard with a double entry.
Jeez, Juicy has certainly made himself known this season. On form. And on the ace, no less, as well. Oh, that's a great flank from Vinny, and looking for another. My God, I have no idea where he came from, just from inside the walls, and Juicy finds his third. He has certainly opened up this round for Knights, but thanks to Vinny upstairs, it's become a bit more even. Emo holds out on side as well, and Vincia for another. Juicy will have to ace.
Juicy does love a moment to step up. He's just going to take his time, but it looks like both players have actually regrouped onto that top floor. So Diffuser is going to be potentially gatherable here by Juicy, but maybe vertical position held, or potentially a trap in the way here. 30 seconds. Juicy has quite a bit of time to decide what he's going to do on site.
Ooh, what a place to plant. Right in the doorway. Wildcard, are you going to let him do this? Do they think that they have info, but they don't? And suddenly Wildcard spring into action. And suddenly, this is really possible here, Raven. The ace could be on the cards for Juicy. Emo and Vincia to retake. Now Juicy knows where he's planted. And he's playing off-site as Emo and Vinny have to retake every position. They don't have information. And the AK-12 is just such a weapon for Juicy to find in his hands. He hears the diffuser starts to come through, peeking the corner. He has to spray through the wall. He doesn't spray the right way, and Wildcard, one for the retake, deny the ace and take their second round.
Oh, poor Juicy. He's really botched that one a little bit. I thought he was absolutely set. And when he started hearing gunshots on site, I was like, oh, he's sitting on red stairs. Surely he retakes vertical. There were holes already made in that spot. He could have covered from above, pretty safe, but not to be. Look, I think he played it pretty well until that final moment, which is, of course, the most critical part. And got to credit Vincia in general for Wildcard even being in a position to salvage that round, because his flank and just retake of upstairs in general was fantastic.
Yeah, I really don't know where he came from, honestly. Vinny just appeared out of nowhere. We flicked to him, and he's getting that flank through the hatch, taking down the diffuser player in Laundry, and then he somehow manages to kill Dino there. That was a really pivotal moment for me. It was one of those gunfights where I think both of those players were caught with their pants down, and Vinny just happened to get his gun up and land the shots more quicker than Dino did. And Dino has been a bit of a talking point this season as well, hasn't he, Raven? We've praised him, more often than not. In fact, if I go and have a bit of a squiz at so far the player stats in APAC South, where does Dino sit? He's actually not one of the top players, but for plants, he's been pretty high. Good on him, I guess. He's only the third highest rated on his team even, but still, in the top 20 or so overall for the league. So still quite a hot player, but he's yet to find a kill so far. It has been Juicy to step it up. And Juicy has been far and away that highlight player for the Knights, the top rated on their team, statistically speaking.
On Dino as well, he had a struggle start to Villa when in that order game, and they were also starting on attack in that instance. And I remember, cast a curse or whatever you want to call it. After 3 rounds, he was still on the donut, and I remember saying, "Oh, Dino, he's really struggled to get in the game. He's been such an impactful player." And then he got a 3K in round 4. So look, maybe it'll be a similar thing. Maybe he just needs a few rounds on attacking Villa to really warm up. And I believe actually on that game, he ended up being one of their top players. I can't remember if he was MVP in the end or not, but regardless, he was very influential towards the end of that match.
That's what you like to see. Now, speaking of influential players and players that we have really talked about and harped on a lot about this season, Silex, he's the big storyline for Wildcard at the moment. The current phase of their journey through Rainbow Six, they hit that bump with Diesel saying goodbye, and Silex came in from the coaching position, and he's on the Clash this round. And while we have seen Silex come into his own, he's still hasn't necessarily been a highlight player for Wildcard as we wouldn't expect, but on this Clash, I feel like it does play into his strengths as an individual.
I agree. I mean, he's very much the captain, the leader, the very vocal player. I think it was always his role back when he used to play professionally many years ago. So I think it's definitely a level of comfort there. Oh my gosh, okay, a couple of quick entries coming out, and first 90 seconds of some of these rounds have been chaotic, and Imorin just tries to ride that.
My God.
Doesn't really work out though.
Yeah, and Juicy, once again, storming away with this. Now Vinny has to try to retake. Doesn't have the info, sees Juicy's gun, but can't land enough shots, and Dino on the long angle finishes that last kill. Knights just stormed straight on in there and took everything, ripped the rug from under Wildcard's feet.
They did. Wildcard maybe caught a little bit sleeping, but I like that from Knights just stepping it up, putting the foot on the accelerator a little bit. Maybe, again, just a bit of a hard start from them. It was a close round 1. I mean, round 2 ended up being a bit close, but sloppy, right? They got that Vincia flank that happened against them. So I think if they can just stay in touch with this first half, and if they do manage to produce a 3-3, they should be happy with that. And then going into defense, it's winnable for them. But in the camp of Wildcard, I feel like this is a good start for them, because they have really struggled in some of these matches. Earlier on Tuesday, they had a pretty rough one against Chiefs. So to be going this well at the start of this Knights game, I think is a good sign, and it will be giving them some confidence.
There was a game just the other day where we saw Wildcard start really strong, and then they just began to slip away. In fact, I think it was It was the Knights game on Cafe in OCN that we saw these guys play against each other. Wildcard were up, I think it was like 4-4, 4-3, something like that. I was feeling really good for Wildcard, especially considering Knights haven't been the greatest performers within OCN itself. And I thought that they could take it, and then I was just continually depressed and disappointed from that point forward because it just fell apart and Knights stormed the rest. Nothing against the Knights, but it's always nice when you see a team that's been out of form like Wildcard, especially knowing the talent that you have on these players and the heights which they have reached in the past. As soon as you see that to start falling, it's quite sad.
It is. It really is. So I think if they manage to produce a win in this match tonight, it would be fantastic for them for obvious reasons that they get points. But you know, the Knights are officially undefeated in APAC South, so to be the ones to deliver that, I think would be a very big milestone. They've got a lot ahead of them. At the moment, they're leading. Still many more rounds of Siege to play, and Aviator Games last time did go on the hands of Wildcard.
First pick, Geo. Takes down Dino. Had a big round just gone past, but since then, shut down Vinny as well. Good position he's managed to maintain. As this study take starts to shape up for the Knights. They're not going for the map control strategy that they went for last Aviator Games attack. But of course, the pivotal point of a study take is this top main stairs, or TOMS as we like to call it. And that is where Geo has found his first pick.
It can be really tricky to take that top of main stairs, and if you are going to be doing a study-based push, you need it. Looks like the Knights are going to have to split up a little bit here. Josh has actually gone all the way to the other side of the map to start to take across. Hayward is over this side as well. So it looks like they're going to opt to maybe take some 90 control, try and take from the Skull Doorway, which is the one that goes to the Aviator. But they've got a lot of time, so they can do this, figure out exactly where the remaining players of Wildcard, which is all of them, figure out where they're really playing and where these crossfires are held, and try and make something happen.
I love this position from Vinny on the red stairs. 3 ADSs to protect him. A position we've seen played by many others in the past, notably Shaco from EU, and Vinny does land the shots. We know him to be a sharp player, but Hayward's on for that refrag. He's the last one left, though. And, well, Raven, it's going to have to be an ace from him. I don't think that's happening. Maybe the juicy one was possible, but I don't think so here. Hayward on the Yana. With the Knight skin, I don't think that's going to save him.
Doesn't feel like it. It's going to be a tough task. You know, there are a lot of crossfires. That Smoke Babe lands right at his feet.
No.
That's going to take off half his HP. So he is really a sitting duck right now. There's another perfectly placed Smoke Babe. Totally should have been credited to Silex, but Imarin is the one that finishes it. And Wildcard storm out to a 2-round lead.
Quite a dominant lead as well. It's certainly lengthening since the start. And yeah, I'm a bit sad that Silex didn't cop the kill there. I think he might still be on the donut. So I'm a bit disappointing there. Always like to see everyone contributing on the scoreboard. And as you said, you know, that kill really could have been credited to him. Oh, well. Kitchen Dining once again. Now, this is an interesting site to me, Raven, because this is where Knights had that incredible round where Juicy found that 3K, got onto site, and then it just came down to that really strong performance upstairs from Vinny, holding down the vertical, and also Emo on site and able to get one kill and back away. Then they managed to get that retake against Juicy. But just because of the exposure that Wildcard had on that site, right? Knights just saw an opportunity and took it. That makes me a little bit worried for Wildcard. I think Knights are demonstrating that they know how to take these opportunities. I mean, the same thing happened on their stat attack, right? They just found a way to enter into site. They droned out, they got the information they needed, and then they exploited that weakness. And that does get me a little bit concerned for WC.
Yeah, Knights definitely a good team at capitalizing on those opportunities and identifying them, as you were saying. And it did work really well for them in that stat trophy attack in round 3, but you know, it can be a bit trickier with Kitchen Dining because it's one thing to get the vertical control, but it's never really that safe. And also being Villa, there's so many ways to be able to flank that top 4 position. So one thing I'm a little surprised is maybe that Nomad wasn't used as an adaptation here, just for some assistance with flank watch, sound cues, just something to cover it a little bit better. I mean, it can be a bit hit and miss sometimes, but I just feel like some assistance there might have been a little more helpful, just some peace of mind for them when they're getting vertical control, or once they've got vertical control, that a similar situation to round 2 doesn't happen again.
Look at this aggression, though, from Vinny. He stepped up so far, had some big rounds. Oh, hello! Josh is in very early and cuts off Vinny's retreat. Shuts him down straight out of the gate. That's a big pick there for Josh.
Big pick, because came early, and it's Vinny, who's been one of the informed players so far in this match for Wildcard. And of course, we referenced it a lot. He was very impactful last time this site was held by Wildcard. Silex trying to deny this little entry to statue below, also still trying to find his first kill there. He's been credited with quite a few assists, though. The Knights, this is looking good so far. Beautifully cooked nade from Hayward. This is a much better start to this round from the Knights.
Silex completely deleted. Oh, great angle, though, from Emo. All the way from Astro upstairs, but Dino's on for the quick refrag. And pushing up to take control of this position as well. Geo push from 2 angles at once. That was perfect by Sage and Dino. Pat looks for a flank, but he gets spotted, and there comes the peek from Dino. It's just Pat now in a 1v4, no C4. Just the trusty UMP, as many people say, the worst gun in the game. What can he do with it? Absolutely nothing. Josh rounds that corner and manages to achieve the most dominant round so far for the Knights.
Yeah, it was a great round from the Knights. Really good entry on the back of Josh's opening pick. And look, I was a little bit worried when they did lose the player to Red Hallway because Imorin was still just hanging out in Astro. It looked like there were Knights players around Statue. So I'm not sure whether they had just not droned ahead. Maybe the mute jammer was just in the way and they just thought that they would ignore it and try and progress without dealing with it. I don't know. Felt like that might have been their undoing, but they did a great job counteracting that, you know, pushing back through to Astro. Looks like they eventually did get some info. There was a yellow ping on Geo under that default. And yeah, he got absolutely pinched, which was great to see. So good bounce back from the Knights. And again, you know, if they do manage to get this half 3-3, I feel like that's quite the win for the Knights because Wildcard have been playing pretty well so far.
Yeah, definitely. I like this strat that Wildcard have been running time and time again upstairs as well. With the castle, now let's maybe take a bit of a deeper dive into how they're actually setting up this top floor because we saw the way that Knights dealt with it, right? They kind of found picks elsewhere and then managed to 2v1 that player in Astro. But taking a deeper look here, that first Vulcan shield, so some vertical, we saw that. That was how Silex died, the grenade through that. There's a Banshee to prevent someone swinging straight on into stat, a Vulcan shield in Deer or Trophy, and 1 Vulcan shield as well to protect against stat. The mute jam is covering the wall. So overall, you know, pretty solid defense here for Wildcard.
Yeah, it's a great setup. And it does require some time and utility sync to be able to actually fully clear this. Which can also excuse part of maybe why the Knights didn't clear out the likes of Imorin and Geo in that previous round. So see whether it works out again for the Knights, but I think a big factor was just getting Vincia nice and early last time. Now he is roaming around over in the Aviator Games area and 90, giving himself a lot of rotates, and he's actually going to piece out from that top floor down to the living room. And he's been joined by Geo, so much more elusive roam arounds this time. And I think this is already quite a bit of a delay for the Knights.
Well, last round was a very, very early pick from Josh onto Vinny. Like you said, that's not quite the case this time, of course. Dino's in, though. He's been pretty strong on these entries. Looking to drone ahead now. Study control taken, plane. All the way up to 90. This is very good map control for the Knights as they start to encroach upon the real meat and potatoes of this defense for Wildcard, which is what we highlighted earlier. Stat, Trophy, Master, Astro. Those are the points where this battlefield will really be drawn. Geo's also downstairs being droned out. So it's not just the top floor where is this point of contention. Knights are really pushing both sides.
They are, but Geo is the one to finally come out the victor in the opening pick here. It's come after the halfway mark. Juicy getting heavily tagged up as well. This is looking just so much more spread out from the Knights, and it's really not working out. Dino finally does get an answer back, and actually a double to even it out to be a 3 versus 3. They do finally have this vertical control, it appears.
Great situation now, but still turbulent. You know, both teams only having those 3 players remaining makes this a bit more difficult. Juicy also being low on HP. He's been that impact player so far on these entries, despite playing the hard breach. But Salix is in a pivotal position. If he gets droned out, he's vulnerable. But Utility is starting to be a little bit desperate now for the Knights. 1 smoke left, but no frags. Still some Ash rounds to clear any Banshees and what have you, but I just don't really see Knights getting some of these hard breach walls open and nading out these key positions. This is a really pivotal moment.
Yeah, it is. They just don't really have good control, and they're just going to funnel through the Memorial Door here, Dev. I think this could really work against them. Geo gets Dino. That's going to make it even harder, and on they go. 10 seconds. They have to try and push deep or get this plant, and it's just going to be impossible. Wildcard stand up with the stop and take the half 4-2.
Excellent way to end the half for Wildcard. It started strong and they managed to retain their composure. Lovely shot at the end there from Geo as well. That was quite a flick. I really like the way they played that 3 versus 3 as well. Ended up in a 3v0. Wildcard didn't drop a single player. They just held safe and strong positions. That single bulletproof camera that we saw in dining around the area, I like to call Tetris, because it's a little bit of a Tetris of, and a lot of people call it Tetris. It's a little set of upturned tables and stuff. Looks like something out of Tetris. That info gathered by that camera was quite good, and Knights didn't have any nades left. They had the Ash charges, but I think it was just too little too late for them. And also, the great thing about that bulletproof is it made Juicy hesitant about throwing his smoke. You know, he was going to force down that smoke to enable the plant, but there's no point in putting a smoke grenade down when there's a bulletproof camera on the defense side, because the bulletproof can see through it and you can't. So you're just giving an advantage of information to the defenders.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think overall, we talked about it a little bit at the start of the round. Wildcard's strategy for that was very tight. You know, a lot of utility required to clear up above, a lot of time commitment required. It worked really well for the Knights in round 5, because they did get a very quick opening pick onto Vincia, which meant that they could easily cut half the map. And they were able to ride that momentum. But without that, they struggled. They ended up getting very split up. They weren't able to get any really meaningful map control. They got picked to pieces by Wildcard. So yeah, we just saw that collapse that was never really going to work out. So great stuff from Wildcard on defense. But now here's the real test, I'd say, for Wildcard, is their attack. Because if there's anything that's going to expose any ounce of lack of synergy in a team, it's going to be your attacks.
And Wildcard have been very, very slow so far in both APAC South and OCN. They've had a mix of that kind of slow, methodical playstyle, and then that little aggression that we see from some of the newer players, the roster, like Vinny. Though he's not really so much new anymore, but he's definitely got experience on an aggressive team. Geo goes down first to Josh. Now, Geo's already found... Well, he's found himself in 4 opening engagements so far this map, and he's won 3 of them. That's the first time he's actually died first up.
Yeah, pretty important pick. Also, the buck, the vertical play for this site, pretty important, being able to flush out some really key positions. So that's going to be missed for sure by Wildcard. It's probably going to stall them out as well, because probably rely on that buck clearing up things like the classical hallway in the corner, or 90, or even the gun vault. And without that, you just have to think about different solutions. So see how they adapt to the loss.
Juicy just picked up his deployable shield from the top of main stairs, reinforced over the rotate hole, and he's going to rotate his deployable shield into the A bomb site instead. I really love that.
Yeah, spicy little mid-round adaptation. He's going to give Wildcard top of main stairs for free though, but Dino hit a beautiful tight shot. Didn't quite see the angle, but that did absolutely delete Vinny on that entry. It was from the study door as well. My word.
So 3v5 for Wildcard, and while they do have top main stairs control, another tight angle for Dino. The pivotal thing here is Knights have pulled back and fortified their positions in sight, though finally the first pick of the round for Wildcard as Emo starts to bite back.
Looks like they are very keen to continue this push down classical hallway. Juicy just going to try and slow that down for as long as possible. He hasn't popped that smoke, babe. Silex is going to smoke off 90 to try and gain some entry. 30 seconds, though. Wildcard are going to have to make something happen, and that's Silex going down to Juicy.
Big pick, no more hard breach. Josh hears the repel and just goes for the pre-fire emo. Manages to get the refrag, but Juicy plays off of his teammate to close the round for Knights, and they start their half strong here, Raven, converting that opening advantage.
That was a great round from them. Honestly, that opening pick from Josh, pretty pivotal. I think taking the buck out was a significant dent into the strategy that Wildcard wanted to be able to do for that attack. So their adaptation to push classical just never really went anywhere. So this is a good start to the half for the Knights. And I'm starting to feel a little concerned for Wildcard because really once they did lose Geo, they looked pretty stalled out.
Yeah, I definitely think that the opening picks going the way of Knights definitely had an impact. You know, being in a 3v5 position, we kind of talked about a Wildcard might have had top main stairs control, but it's so hard to crack that site when there's 4 or 5 players taking their time just waiting on the bomb site with strong positions behind deployable shields. Juicy with the smokes. We also had that control, I believe it was Josh, around 90, always ever present, making sure that the swing in from the repel was not possible. And I just think that Wildcard trying to 3v5 that, it's just so much more difficult when Knights are just waiting patiently. And they're so together, they're not spread out. They make sure that even if Wildcard can find a pick, Knights will bite right back.
5 seconds to insertion.
In the grand scheme of things, of course, the Knights are going to be wanting to secure this in regulation to get all 3 points. I mean, both teams are going to be wanting to do that, but Knights in particular, this is their chance to really jump out in a solid lead in first place in APAC South. So if they do manage to get 3 points tonight, they will be sitting pretty. I mean, their closest opponent, I think, will still be Elevate, and it depends on how that matchup goes after this one. But I would think it would be very close to securing the Knights first place. Maybe not secure, but very close. And, the Knights did fumble a little bit on Tuesday. They only got 2 points against 7th Heaven. As you were referencing earlier, Dev, they lost a 6-0 lead to only end up winning in overtime. And this season, that's significant. That's only 2 points instead of 3. It does all add up.
Yeah, at this point in the season, the maximum total points that any team could have gotten after playing 4 matches rather, is 12 points. And Knights are on 10, and that's the highest of anyone. Like, they haven't lost a game. They've just had 2 of those overtime wins, like you said, one against Elevate, one against Order. Oh, great opening pick there from Wildcard. But what that means for Knights is that they're almost at the perfect record, right? They've only dropped 2 points out of 12 possible points all season. And I think that they'll accept nothing less than going perfect from here on out, especially against a team like Wildcard, which they would consider themselves significantly above. Wildcard currently sitting at the bottom of the standings with only 3 points from their singular victory. So I definitely think that Knights here would be very happy to get the full 3 points, and it would also set them up incredibly well. And it's really the onus on Elevate to try and catch up.
So great use of verticals here from Geo, though, to progress this round. It has been almost 2 minutes that has started to erode away. And they're only just getting this vertical control now. Can start to open the bedroom wall, which is going to push back these statue players to either in the corners or play completely out of that site. So Wildcard setting themselves up for this execute. They still have a bit of time. Of course, they do have that man advantage because Hayward was that opening death there. So sitting in a great position, but this is where it gets tricky, is what do you start to do with Astro and Trophy?
Yeah, it's really going to come down to the execute here. 34 seconds left and ticking away for Wildcard. So Nade destroys the Banshee and allows Wildcard another way in. Great shots there from Geo. I could barely see Juicy inside, but that's all the gas canisters gone down. Josh manages to find that refrag eventually, and he's just dancing with death around this position. He could find another. Goes for the spray, but pushed from all sides. Finally, Vinny finishes it off, but Sage is here as well. Silex finds his first. And it is all on Sajon against two players, Emorin to cover Silix, and he does so perfectly as Wildcard find their first attack round win.
It was a great execute at the end, really. Just that storm in through Astro, and that they were able to trade out those picks. And again, we highlight that man advantage that they got early, taking out Hayward. It allowed them to ride that out and to be able to have that 2v1 situation at the end. Beautifully covered from Emorin. So Silix also got his first kill on the board, so that's probably gonna make him feel just that little bit better about himself on the hard support role.
Yeah, I hate that every single week we talk about how many kills Silix has. I hate it. I hate it. I love Silix. I mean, we play with Silix. You know, we used to play with Silix a lot before he got drafted into this damn roster. He used to, you know, hang out with us in ranked. We used to be able to have a good time with him. But no, this big man these days got a new job and having to fill in for the squad as well. He's not got time for us plebs anymore.
I think the poor guy hasn't any time to sleep either.
Certainly had a pretty busy life.
Tonight, they're now finding themselves 2 rounds down, Dev. And we're talking about how they would be bitterly disappointed to not get 3 points. Wildcard is 1 round away from ensuring that. You know, if Wildcard get this round, that is no longer a reality for Knights. But on top of that, you know, we talked about maybe they might be really bitter about not getting 3. They're pretty close to maybe not even getting any. Wildcard, they've built a really good buffer, and this is the scary part of a match where that buffer counts. 5-3 is a great spot to be sitting if you're Wildcard.
Especially considering these guys are not favored to win this game, right? Like Wildcard, if anything, I think most bets would be saying Wildcard is going to lose this without even getting a point. If you're feeling generous to WC, you'd say, oh, they managed to push overtime but Knights still win and cop the 2 points. So Wildcard would just get the 1 off that. And at the moment, like, I mean, that's what I would have said coming into this game, but Wildcard at the moment, only 1 more attack round win, Raven, and then they have guaranteed themselves that singular point and match point along with it, which could potentially lead to the 2 or the 3 points, which would be massive for the standings, considering Wildcard are currently at the very bottom with only 1 victory, and it wasn't even 1 in overtime. If they do win this, they'll actually trump, you know, half of the rest of the teams at the moment. I mean, if what I'm looking at right now is correct, we've got 4 teams on 5 points. Wildcard would jump all of those, end up in 4th place.
Yeah, definitely those teams, you know, in the mid-table would be not too happy for the Knights to lose this one.
But Elevate would be happy though.
Elevate would certainly be happy. It does give them a better chance to catch up. Not too happy though, I tell you what, is probably Pat did lose that opening engagement against Sage. Pat in particular actually has had a tough game.
Also pretty heartbreaking when you lose to a player and you look at his health and you're like, look at Sage's health, he's got like 4 HP left. How? Pat would be, I mean, I would be fuming. Oh,
yeah, me too.
no.
Never feels good. Silix, oh, he goes off onto Juicy. At least they've equaled that man count now. Looks like they're really going to be surrounding Memorial, not getting the vertical control, it looks like. Uh-oh.
That's unfortunate. Now 4v3 for Wildcard. They've really got back on the horse after that initial opening death. Now, speaking of Pat, Guz has just let us know some stats last week. Pat went 0.34 rating and 1 kill to 9 deaths. That is honestly abysmal. And he's not having a lot more luck this week.
No, but thankfully his teammates are playing pretty well. They've got themselves in this 4v2. And a big double, in fact.
Oh. Surely Emorin can't clutch this, and Sage, still on that 4 HP, finds the last one. I don't understand, Raven, how Knights managed to claw that back. Everything went down the toilet for them. But Wildcard, they certainly could not close it out, and the waves crashed straight onto the cliffs and found absolutely nothing.
Yeah, really unfortunate. I was so set with that 4v2 that Wildcard were going to be moving forward to match point. Dino was also, you know, he dropped out while he was still alive, so it doesn't help. I'm gobsmacked. That it was a huge double kill from Sage, the C4, and followed up with the gun kill, but does make things a little bit different in the landscape here. 4-5 is not as stressful for Knights, but still very important. You know, we've said it a lot. They want to be securing 3 points here, and they're finding it tough to stay in equal terms.
Massive credit to Sage there on that round, like you said. As a 3K, considering that he also found that opening against Pat, right? And we talked about that. He was only on a couple of points of health after that. This is the snowball effect that we see in Rainbow. Like, imagine Pat had landed that headshot, or he just got one more bullet on there. Then Sage would not have found that 3K, and I'm pretty willing to say that, look, even if both Pat and Sage had, like, traded, if they had both died, I think that Wildcard would have won that round, because Sage had just such a big impact. And so Pat's going to be kicking himself. I mean, you can't think like that, right, as a player. But I as a viewer, I can't help but have that drift into my mind and think, wow, just that narrow margin that Sage keeps his life and then goes on to have such a massive effect on the round.
5 seconds to insertion.
That's pretty shocking, pretty devastating.
Yeah, look, definitely while you're still playing, you don't think about that as a player, but that is the kind of stuff that when you lay in bed later, you will start to think about. You know, you start to think, oh, if I'd just pre-fired just a little bit earlier, or if I peaked it a different way, you start to think about all the different things that you could have done to save a match. And as you're saying, you know, that this could have put Wildcard to match point. It's hard to say how the round would have progressed after that if that had happened, but yeah, definitely that stuff does start to factor into your mindset.
Now for Wildcard attacking Aviator Games. Now this was the first defense won by Knights, if you remember. They held top main stairs, and after finding that initial pick, they fell off. Moved their shield into the site, reinforced over their rotate hole. Now, they haven't done that just yet. Still quite an extended position. It looks like Juicy is still at the top of main stairs. His goal to waste as much time as possible with his gas. Maybe peel off if he thinks it's good, but you can see there's a lot of utility stacked here. An ADS, at least 2 magnets. Try and keep him alive for as long as possible. And should he start feeling that pressure, he has the gas to keep his enemies at bay, but he is going to fall back, at least for now.
Yeah, and we saw this adaptability from Juicy back in round 7. It worked out pretty well. Knights did salvage that round, or they did win that round. So here we go. He's done a similar thing, Dev. He's pulled back, fully reinforced now.
He didn't take the shield with him this time, though.
Oh, true, yeah. He's still sitting there. It's now been droned out, so they know that it's clear. Vincier just takes no time going to study, and he gets the opening pick onto Dino. Beautiful shot there. That is a good start for Wildcard.
Such a big pick as well. In every round but one so far this game, the opening pick has been converted to a round win. Now, that is a pretty exciting stat if you're a Wildcard fan right now. Gio holding this long line. He has come back to life in this game compared to his performance in weeks past, as Wildcard, they don't have full 90 control. And what was that impact trick? What kind of a breach do we end up with on that wall? I wonder. This is a pretty decent time as well. Oh, okay, I'm not sure whether that's a vaultable hole. I think it's just a line of sight. I can't quite tell from the feed. But that, you know, that goes both ways, honestly. And look at these aggressive smokes from Juicy to try and keep Wildcard at bay.
Yeah, he's trying his best, and time is starting to really run down here with only 20 seconds. Wildcard really need to try and get some picks and get into sight here. That Selma is not going to go off. It's muted. And here we go. They're going to have to funnel through. Silex with some great shots. Oh, my lord. Wildcard, they're in. They're going to have to try and get this plant down, but Josh on the boost. It's all up to him, Dev.
He's got to ace it as well. He's found the first 2. Pat holds down, redeems himself for last round. And on the back of that execute, Wildcard take match point.
Great attack in the end from Wildcard. Just, look, I remembered back to that first Aviator Games round for this half, and it was the early pick on Gio that we felt like had a pretty big impact. And this time around, Gio was alive, and he was getting some great verticals from below. He was really pressuring those players in the deep positions, such as Vault. I think that really was the difference. They could not focus on the entry from Wildcard. Silex in particular with a great little explosion into the bar. Just absolutely beautiful from them, and it's forced a Knight's attack timeout right now. They need to salvage this.
They certainly do. I mean, this would be such a significant loss for the Knights, right? You look at the context of their whole season, they haven't dropped a game in the APAC South League. The only points that they have not gotten, that they could have gotten, were against 7th Heaven just last week with that reverse sweep where they still edged out the win but forfeited the 1 point thanks to going to overtime. And a similar story against Order the week before. If anything, Knights have been on a bit of a downhill trajectory since that opening day of APAC South. They beat Chiefs 7-4. The following week, they beat Q Confirm 7-2. That was a massive game for them and a huge statement saying, we are here to be number one. And then since then, they haven't looked quite as good. Wildcard, now they have been slow and steady on the up, but I certainly was not expecting them to take this game. And in fact, you looked at our talent predictions, no one picked Wildcard.
No, none of us did. And it's always, I think we said it right as we started the cast, Elvis, and it always is a bit of a, you never know what's happening with Wildcard. It just feels like there's going to be one day that they just kind of break through that glass ceiling in terms of what has been holding them back. I feel like they've been playing really well in this match, but at the same time, look, I really feel like the Knights have been playing a bit sloppy. I just don't think this is the tightness that we've seen from the Knights earlier in the stage, at least. So, as you were saying, it does feel like the wheels in the cart are starting to really wobble around.
It's certainly worrying. Knights were looking like Oceania's best hope to take the APAC South Championship, #1 spot. Even contest Cloud9 in APAC North, because of course, coming off of the APAC South League, we will have the playoffs and the matches to determine who is the best in APAC. I don't know if I would rate Knights against Cloud9 at this stage, but Cloud9 is certainly the team to beat in APAC North. But it might be that with Wildcard showing Knights that they are mortal, it might give Elevate then a chance to get Thailand into that #1 spot in that game against C9.
Juicy. He's just toying with these wildcard players. Bottom of main stairs, but it's Geo is the one that steps up, and he's got that opening pick, that all-valuable opening pick. So, what can the Knights salvage from this? They are in a man disadvantage so early in the round at that. And they need to be perfect for these next two just to save this game.
Just like we saw last round as well, that opening pick has been so impactful. I'm going to say it again. Every single round but one. The team who found the opening pick has won the round in this game. Wildcard have everything they need. Juicy forced back off the position. Geo's doing amazing work on the buck here with this vertical play as Juicy falls back like he's done time and time before. But Geo, the game sense on this man to pre-fire through the floor. He perfectly knows the map. He perfectly knows that position. And that puts Wildcard within touching distance of this victory.
Yeah, one hand is on the dub. Can they get both hands and raise it up? They've got 50 seconds to get to that point. Knights are scrambling on site. Hayward, he actually gets a pick onto Pat. Tries to slow things down. He still has 90 control. And given the way that Wildcard have been funneling up Classical Hallway, this could be very big for Knights.
With the C4, Hayward waits, takes down the drone, looking to toss this. He wants this to work. He needs it to work. The C4 blows, but finds nothing. Geo on the third for the round. 20 seconds left, and Wildcard have found themselves in a 4 versus 1. See you later, Dino. Wildcard jump right up the standings from last place to 4th.
Man, oh man, definitely not how we expected the Knights to go. I mean, I thought that it may be close, but this is just a great step up for Wildcard on the back of Geo, returning to some really great form. So well played to Wildcard. They just had such a great read on the Knights for the entire map. Felt like they really had that control, and the Knights just didn't seem to have any answers.
It was funny because in that first half, we kept wondering, are Knights going to bring it back? Can they maybe get a 3-3 half here, 4-2 even, potentially on their attack? But it was Wildcard